Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to do part 2 of our MAP training. So I'm going to share my screen for you. And we are going to dig into the reports. The last time we did the student profile and talked about how to share information with students and with families. And then we went through that cute little kindergarten goal setting video and talked about how setting goals that are specific to a skill instead of just here you need a bigger number in your MAP score is what's going to give our kids the power to actually gain those big growths in their scores. So today we're going to look at all the different class reports. Again, you go to log in. If you're like me, you cheat and you have it remember your login information. So all you have to do is push login and then you're good to go. And I'm going to have to move my taskbar again. I apologize, but I still have not figured out how to fix that. If anyone has information on how to fix it, I would love to hear it. So when you go here, again, most of you will have this section right here. We're going to go to view reports, and you're welcome to pull up your own MAP account on your computer while we're working if you want to work with your students and your data. We're going to go to MAP growth reports. And then last week we talked about the student profile. I showed you how to find the family report from the student profile. Just as a quick side note, you also can get that from right here, family report. It's the same information. But today we're going to look at our class reports. So we're going to start with our class breakdown, which is right here. We're going to click on that. And then, like always, you'll have to put in the term that you took the test, the school, your name, and a class. I'll pick 6th grade for now. And then you should decide if you want to get this report by RIT score, which is that ready for instruction today. It's that number somewhere in the 140-50 to 240-ish, somewhere in there. Or you can choose to get the report by a goal or by projected proficiency. You can either view your report online or you can create a PDF, which will then throw your information into the reports queue, which is over here. And it'll also give you a link when it prints it. So I will show you if I create a PDF report, it's going to give me this information. And whoops, sorry about that. I'm going to log out of it because I didn't mean for it to bring up. I thought it was going to let me. I'm not going to show it to you because then I'll be giving you everyone's data. But the beautiful thing is what we're going to do today is go up here to this help section, which I showed you last time. And you will see when I click on help, it's automatically taking me into the class breakdown report. So I'm going to make it bigger on my screen so that we can see it better. And then I'm going to show you what we have here. So first of all, let me make it even bigger. I apologize for it being a little bit blurry, but we have to use false or fake or sample district data so that we don't violate FERPA rules, okay? So if you choose to get your report by breakdown of the RIT score, you're going to get something that looks like this. Math, reading, some of you will also have science, and it's going to give you a breakdown of a goal range, and it's going to put the student name and their specific score in the range that they fell. So we can see we have 2 students in math and 2 students in reading that are kind of far down here. We have the bulk of our class in this score range. And then we've got a few students in both reading and math that are higher than everybody else. So this gives us information about where they fell, but not specifically about what part of math or what part of reading they were having trouble with. But one thing I want to point out to you is if I look down here at my lowest group, you'll notice here's one student, and I'm sure you will have those, that in both reading and math was behind down here in this bottom category. But this student right here, JA, did not show up down here in reading. He's way up here in reading. He's down here in math. This student right here, JN Felipe, is not way at the bottom in math. He is actually up here in math. So you're going to have those students who are behind in both. You're going to have those students that if you give them math, they're doing pretty good, but it's the reading they're having a struggle with, and vice versa. So this report right here can kind of show you, does anybody have any ideas for those students who are behind in math, but who are excelling in reading? Does that give us any information? How can we help that student in math if they have a strength in reading?
Maybe we could add more things like word problems and incorporate more reading aspects into the math problems.
Okay, so show them that math is actually a story, and we can utilize their reading strength in the classroom for our students who are having, because a lot of our students are going to struggle with those word problems. So we can probably help this student gain a little bit of self-confidence and maybe even reinforce some reading skills by using their strength in that math classroom where they're struggling. Show them that they have the ability to use that strength. What about if we have a student who is excelling in math but struggling in reading? Any ideas for how we can help a student that is
have them turn the math question into a reading problem, like create a real world scenario from a math equation. And that would get them, and then have them read it, and that would at least help out, I think, with that.
Okay, yeah, so that's one way that we can look at this. We can see where a student has a strength, or, you know, this little guy right here, JE, he's just struggling, or she, in both of them. So we know we just are going to have to do a lot of foundation building. We don't know, we might have a 504 or a SPED student that has special accommodations, or we might be looking at this student going through the RTI process so we can figure out what the issue is. Maybe they missed a lot of school a year before and they just need to catch up, or maybe they really do have a learning disability that we need to find. But that we're going to do that through the RTI process. And when you get this report, and this link right here will be a clickable link. It will take you to the mathematics section or the reading section, and then give you further detail. So here, this is English language arts. So in our sample data, they clicked on reading, and now we have our breakdown by specific reading skills. So now it's not just reading as a whole, it's foundational skills, language and writing, literature and information. And again, it's broken down by that RIT score, so you can see groupings of students. Anybody have any ideas of how we could use those groups that MAP created for us? Is there any reason we would want students in a group based on their language and writing skills?
We could base them in a small group, or when we RTI students.
Yeah, we can create small groups. and RTI students based on this information. That's exactly right. And when you pull this up online, all of these things are going to be clickable links. Since this is sample data, it's not going to let me click, but it is going to show me. If I were to click here, this is going to link to the Learning Continuum Report, which we're going to talk about here in a second, and give us even more specific data. But this report, the class breakdown, is just going to group our students based on their RIT score or by a goal that we set. So if I go back here and I click that I want to set this by goal, and then I click help, it's going to just start with this section right here. So it's basically giving us the same information. But you can play with that with your own data by clicking on all of the specific goal score or the specific RIT score. And then you can also get that report by projected proficiency, where if you're a STAR tested grade, it's going to say these students are projected to not meet at all. These students are projected to approach. These students are projected to meet or master. And then our goal, of course, as a teacher is to get those students to hop over the line. So we want to move everybody up at least one level during the year. And we talked about last week setting individual goals to help students do that. And then we're going to look at the Learning Continuum Report, which is another way that's going to help us to do that information. And I'm going to shrink my screen a little bit so we have a more normal view. All right. So for the Learning Continuum Report, we're going to go same thing back to the first page, Math Growth Reports. We are going to go to this blue and green tab called the Learning Continuum. And then I have an opportunity to choose Class View, which I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Help so that it gives me sample data. And here we are in, this is math because we're in measurement and data. But what you will see if you go to the Learning Continuum and choose the class view, all of your students show up over here on the side according to their specific scores. So right now we're looking at geometric measurement and problem solving. So this is not just an overall math score. This is this specific topic in math. Here's where all of your students fell. So these three, or this one student fell in the 211 to 220 range. We have one student here. We have several students here. And it will just keep going wherever you have students. So you might have several blocks where you don't have any students. You might have one way behind or one way ahead. But you'll see groups of students just like you do on the other report. And what this one does is it tells you specific skills and targets that you want your students to learn. So here is perimeter and circumference. These are students who need extra support, can progress by focusing on this skill. So we might take these two right here, and in our RTI time, we know we need to boost their score 214, we want it to be higher. This one, her overall score was 224. This one was 214. So the difference in their overall scores was pretty big, but they both need help on this one topic. So even though this student is higher overall in math, we found an area that this student needs some foundational support. So we can group this student with this student for this skill because they're both ready to work on that skill. These three we can group here. So here we're determining the circumference of a circle. And now a little bit more progressed in math, this group is ready to determine the circumference given the area of a circle. So it's just a little extra depth to that skill. And we can do that for every skill and for every different topic in math or reading or science if your students took science as well. So that's another way that we can group students. Also, if we are planning a lesson, let's say we're planning a new lesson for math, and we have a TEK that involves this skill right here. That's our grade level lesson. What do we know about these students here if our grade level lesson is going to be here? Feel free to unmute and share. If we know we're doing our lesson plans and next week, this is going to be our target skill, and we look at our learning continuum report and we see 3 of our students are right here, 2 are down here, and the rest are somewhere above, what do we know about our lesson that's coming up? How are we going to plan for meeting the needs of all of our students?
Well, you'd need to differentiate. You can do a whole class, but then you need to give extra support on the side for the 2 lower, and then you'd need to challenge the upper with extra, maybe a little bit ahead. You can see that on some other report that gives you like advanced on that same topic. So you need to differentiate.
Exactly. So if I had planned to spend a whole week just on this topic, and I have 3 students that are ready to learn that, 2 are below it, and all the rest of my 20-something kids are above it, I might say, oh, I probably don't need a whole week. I just need to make sure with these students, I give them that extra targeted time. I scaffold my lesson so that they're capable of learning that information at grade level. And then during RTI time, I'm giving them that extra support. And then like Ms. Oxner said, for those that are down here further and already past this skill, I'm going to extend that. I'm going to see what the next, so down here determines the radius or diameter given the circumference of a circle. So I'm going to include all of that information with that TEK so that everybody's exposed to grade level and everybody's getting what they need individually. So I can take this class report that lists all my students, and I can scan through as I'm planning my lessons for the next week. I'm going to scan through there, and I'm going to see where is my class as a whole, and I'm going to figure out how much scaffolding am I going to have to do. Is this something everybody does not understand yet? Then I'm going to present my whole class lesson at a little bit more visually reinforced or whatever. I'm going to scaffold that lesson so that my students can be able to tackle that information. If I see that my whole class already mastered that topic, I'm just going to kind of give a basic introduction and move on in my lesson plan. So it helps us to use our time in the classroom wisely. We're not spending a bunch of time on a TEK that our students have already shown that they mastered just because it shows up in our curriculum guide or a year at a glance. We don't go, oh, well, I have to spend a whole week on this if my whole entire class did some kind of amazing field trip last year and they really got that concept and they're good to go. I don't need to spend a whole week in my class time on that topic. I'm just going to move on, but I'm going to make sure that I'm not leaving anybody behind. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Don't everyone talk at once. All right. Then I'm going to go back here, and that is the class view. Oh, I will say this. When we first learned about the class view, we were printing this off, and then going through and highlighting the things that were different, because some of these things are the same. The skills that the students are ready to develop or learn are the same, like here and here. And so we were going through and we were highlighting, and then we were trying to figure out based on what's different on the next one. It was taking us a very long time. But we were determined that we were going to meet the needs of all of our students. And so we were plugging through anyway, right, Ms. Oxner? And it was taking us a really long time, but we were like, this is valuable data. We have to use it. And then we went to a training and we were shown this, that if you skip class view and go down here to test view, here's growth reading 2 through 5. Let's say I'm an ELAR teacher for one of these grades. I'm going to click that. And then what happens is I get this report. It has no student names on it because it's just the information on what skills are being learned at what score level. So this arrow here is going to take me to higher scores or lower scores. So this is the lowest score, and then way up here is the highest score. Okay, so when I looked at my class view, if I had a whole bunch of students in this score range, notice it highlighted the one below and the one above. And then let's say I'm working on context clues and reference. So I'm going to click this little down area. Because I chose this goal range here, it's going to give me, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to go back because I forgot to set it to by standard. Is that right here? Oh, here it is. Edit display options. So it normally, it comes up by topic. We can choose no group, but that's not going to be beneficial for us. If we group by standard, that's going to give us, let's say I'm a 4th grade teacher. Now I have my 4th grade skills. And then based on the RIT score, this is what these students are ready to develop. And as I change, I can change my RIT score and I get the skills that these students are ready to develop. So what we figured out that we could do is we could go back to this list, find the score for that student, come over here, have this information, and just plug our student names in was a lot faster than trying to do all of the students the other way, because this gives us exactly these students here, they're ready to locate information in dictionaries. Back here, they're going to use the context in the dictionary or the thesaurus to determine the meaning. Now they're ready to look up the information. And here we're using determining word meaning. But I have this list of specific skills based on this TEAC that my students are ready to learn. And it grouped them for me in that, class learning continuum report. It grouped them for me. But if I look at the test view, I can get this specific information. And I'm going to go back here to edit display options. So you're always going to have to come in here to edit display options and choose group by standard. If you don't choose a grade level, then you're going to get all of the grade level are going to be shown at that, which is a lot. So you can always choose your grade level and the one below and the one above, or you can stick with your grade level If you want to see all of them, you can click them all, but you're going to get a whole bunch of information. But this report, let's go back to 4th grade, is going to help you to see where your students are and where they're going to, what they're going to be ready to learn. And then of course you can go to the next choice, literary text. And you, down here, when I move that up, now these students are ready to develop these skills. Here's the TEAC. Students at this level here aren't ready for this TEAC right here. Use print or digital resources to determine meaning, syllabication, and pronunciation. They're going to need some scaffolding if they're down here at this score. They're going to need some scaffolding before they can even get there. Because this score, 161 to 170, is where those students are ready to be introduced to this information. So if I'm a 4th grade ELAR teacher and I'm about to go to 4.3a and teach a lesson on that, and I have 6 students that are down here in this RIT score level, I know I'm going to have to do a lot of scaffolding because they're not developmentally ready in the ELAR section in their reading skills to be able to tackle this TEAC without that extra support. But as I move further up in the scores, now I have students ready to develop these skills. So it's looking at this information when you're planning your lessons and when you're planning your RTI groups. The other report with the class view, it breaks that down for you and says, here, these kids together are ready to learn this. So I can get my small group together. I can assign that material to them. But it's also in planning my lessons for the week, looking at this information so that I know where my class is and how I'm going to scaffold the ones who are lower and how I'm going to extend that learning, that differentiation to the ones who were way up there down the scale. Not only are they not ready, they've passed, develop, and reinforce. They don't even really need these skills. That means I'm going to have to extend their learning in the classroom. Questions? Is that confusing or helpful?
I have a question.
Huh?
How are you getting the numbers across the top with the green arrow on, like
this? So I chose up here. These are the RIT scores.
right?
Overall score. So I just chose one. And then here, it put the one I chose in the center, and it's giving me, here's everything the students in this score group are ready to develop. So they have some information on these skills. It's not just an introduction, but they're not ready to reinforce either. This is what they're ready to develop.
Right.
And then it gave me the one before that and the group after that. And this green arrow here, when I click on that, it's just changing this up here for me without me coming back up here. So
Mine
I
just
could,
isn't showing those numbers, I guess. That's
Maybe because you have kindergarten.
so let's go back and choose a different, move our faces out of the way. And I'm going to go back here to growth reports and we'll choose kindergarten. So let's see. So here's,
test view.
Okay, the K through 2 math gives us the RIT scores. Let's try reading. Then we go reading K2. Did you choose the test view?
Looking. No, I don't think I did. So that's probably it.
Okay. And so you'll notice that the scores are lower, obviously, because now we're in kindergarten. Whereas when I chose the second grade test, this was my lowest score. Now I've got scores down here. But these scores go from the lower grades all the way through the upper grades. So if I have a 6th grader taking math 6+ test, notice my score could go way down here or way up here. It's the same score line. So if my 5th grader scores a 160 and your 2nd grader scores a 160, it's because they're at the same level academically in math or reading or whatever that score was. The score path, remember, this is like a ruler test. It's a placement test. It's showing where I fall on the ruler. So this scale just keeps on going. I can be way behind or I can be way ahead, but the percentile that we looked at last time on the student profile report where it says this child was at the 50th percentile, that means I'm right at average for where I should be in 4th grade or 3rd grade or kindergarten or whatever grade. But if I'm way behind, I might be a 5th grader who's way down here at the 1st percentile, but I might have the same score as a 1st grader or 2nd grader or 3rd grader who is further up the ruler as far as percentile goes. Does that make sense? Are we good with that? I can't see y'all, so you have to talk to me because I'm looking at my screen and only a couple of you. All right, so does anybody have any idea? What?
I'm just kidding. I said, I can see the rest of you. I'm just kidding.
Does anybody have any questions on how that works or any ideas for how we can use that for planning RTI groups or whole group lessons? You might want to share out an idea. Yes, ma'am.
Well, what I want to remind the teachers is, or maybe they don't know this, but our goal here with our online and in class 2 is this map data is going to be incorporated into Path Blazers. And so we should be able to, once that happens, and Ms. Riggs and I were talking, we don't know if it's going to happen when the whole district finishes their map testing because everybody's not finished yet. Or if they do it one campus at a time, I would suspect when everybody finishes. But this map data is going to be incorporated or married or whatever to Path Blazers so that when we put those students, they log in, it should take them where they need to be, kind of like our map skills we did with our map skills. So it's kind of replacing map skills, but that'll be a really good tool for us. We definitely want to work with the kids, small groups, one-on-one, but also that's going to be a really good tool for us to help the students with the RTI as well.
And for extending learning too, because it's going to take those kids that are already at or past grade level on those specific TEKs, and it's going to shoot them above and give them what they need so that everybody's growing, because we don't want to just target our lowest students. We want to target everybody. We want everybody to have at least 1 year of growth while they're here with us for 1 year. Anybody else? All right, somebody tell me one thing that really stood out to you that will be helpful that you think in your planning lessons or RTI groups?
Learning the, sorry,
No, you're good. Go ahead.
just learning the RIT scores and seeing exactly where each student is, so that when you do plan your lessons, you know that I'm gonna have to grab these and bring them
Right.
up, just so we can
Right.
get to where we need to go.
Right. And when you do that, remember too, I just want to remind you, because you're exactly right. And this on the specific skill, when you look up by the class view, which for class view, we had to use the sample data because I can't show you a class that you don't teach. But, just a reminder, in your overall RIT score, somebody might have a higher RIT score, but on that specific topic, they're behind, they're lower. And so that's where we can find the gap, that we know that kid's already got 10 points higher than this kid overall. So if we fill in this skill right here, that's probably going to bump that kid even higher, because they're missing that foundational piece in this area, whereas in other areas they were probably advanced and above grade level. So yeah, you're exactly right. When we put them in there and then plan those lessons based around that, we're going to hit all of our students. You're right. What else? Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sure Ms. Riggs touched on this, but also you can use this data for your at-risk report. So any students that's 25% or lower, if they rank in the 25 percentile, and you can see that on the family report, it tells it for reading, math, and science, then you can use that for at-risk. And any student that is at that 25% or lower should be put into our RTI program. So this is good data to use for that. And then as we go along, and we'll have another testing in probably December or January, and then one more before school is out, we can see how they have progressed.
And then based on the goals that we set with them, they can see how much they grew, and then they can choose a new area to grow in that next time. Anybody else have any questions or comments or ideas, or something that stood out to you that will be helpful? Going once, going twice. All right. So then what I am going to do is stop sharing my screen and ask for y'all to spend some time. We already covered the other reports last time. And the point of doing these class reports is so that you can pull your own data and plan your own lessons. So what I would like for everybody to do is get with your grade level groups and pull your map data up, because then you can talk about the students that you actually have, and you can use that data. You have the rest of the afternoon to plan your lesson plans and to put together some RTI groups. If you don't have access to your data, then reach out to me, and I will reach out to Mr. Kunkel again and see if we can figure out why. Other than that, is everybody good with that? Planning with your own data? Okay.
Make sure that you share your data with the interventionist, because I don't think at this time they have access to any of this data. So once you get those reports and you look at them and you see which kids need those interventions and that you're going to be putting on RTI, share that data with your interventionist so they can look at that, because it breaks it down really, really good to where they need help. So make sure that you're sharing, okay?
I don't have access. I know that for myself, but
Yeah,
yes,
and I have reached out to Mr. Kunkel about that. He told me this morning that he was going to work on getting them access to that. I gave him the name of the interventionist and subjects that they teach and all of that. So hopefully we'll have that soon. And in the meantime, if everybody will share, last year, I don't know if it's different this year or not, but last year, as a teacher, I only had access to my 5th grade students. So I could see reading, I could see math, I could see science, because it all shows up together in one report. But in order to get access to the 4th grade or 3rd grade or whatever students that you need, we had to share login information from MAP. So if I needed to see the 4th graders, I logged in as Mrs. Oxner and saw 4th grade data. And if I needed to log in see a 6th grader, I logged in as Miss Wyatt. So, and it might be because we don't have enough information to know better, but unless somebody knows differently. Yes?
I was able to look at 3rd, 4th, and 5th for all of the math tests.
Awesome. So
And
what
for first
probably
and
happened?
second.
Okay, good. So never mind that. You don't have to share your data with anybody. So I think what happened with that is since we went through Clever, it saw that you were assigned those grade levels and then it just gave you access to those. Okay, so
Awesome.
good. That's good to know. Anybody else?
I just want to say thank you to Ms. Riggs. I know she did an awesome job on Friday as well as today, and we appreciate it. And she's such a good teacher too, isn't she? So thank you, Ms. Riggs, for stepping in and
You're
doing
welcome.
this training, not only for us, but it's going to be shared with all of the principals at the other schools. They need help with this as well. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I am going to stop recording and let everybody go to work on their own data.